Good day, everyone. Hello. My name is Joyce DeMucci. I'm the Deputy Team Leader for the Africa Clean Energy Technical Assistance Facility, or ACE-TAF. I will be the moderator today for this discussion about consumer protection in the off-grid sector in Ethiopia. I'd like to get started with introductions. Please let me have the other participants introduce themselves. We have representatives from the Ethiopian government, the private sector, and our local ACE-TAF representatives. Over to you, Mulugeta.
Okay, thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Mulugeta. I am from Ethiopian Conformity Enterprise, ECAE. I am the Quality Management Director of ECA. Just to give you a quick introduction about ECA, ECA is just a government-owned enterprise with a major core business, testing, inspection, certification, related to off-grid systems. In the previous, we have testing laboratory, testing some solar systems. Thank you.
Thank you, Mulugeta. Very nice to meet you. And Bart?
Good morning, everybody. My name is Bart Minsear. I am a board member of ESEDA, the Ethiopian Solar Energy Development Association. So I will be representing the private sector view in this podcast. I'm also CEO of Hello Solar, the first PVoC solar home system company in Ethiopia, who also assembles units in Ethiopia. So we have quite some experience with this importation and certification topic.
Thank you, Bart. And over to Kenassa.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Kenassa from Africa Clean Energy Technical Assistance Facility. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Kenassa, and thank you, everyone, for the introduction. We have a well-rounded group today. I'm just going to give a little bit of an intro on what we mean by consumer protection and what ACE-TAF as a program is about. And then we'll get into some questions and interview the attendees. So ACE is a 4-year program that commenced in 2018, and we have worked in 14 countries in sub-Saharan Africa to catalyze a market-based approach for the private sector delivery of off-grid solar solutions. The program is funded by the UK government, the FCDO group. Our focus is on access to high-quality standalone solar solutions for marginalized groups specifically. Our interventions complement government, private sector, and donor initiatives to overcome the barriers preventing the development of off-grid standalone solar markets. Today, we will discuss consumer protection as it relates to ensuring that high-quality standalone solar products are made available in the markets in Ethiopia. Across most of sub-Saharan African countries, vulnerable consumers are facing affordability constraints, and it is important that the standalone solar products they purchase are of high quality, feature truth in advertising, and are safe to handle. Poor quality products place an additional burden on the most marginalized consumers, wasting the limited income they have earned on purchases. The International Finance Corporation, or IFC, and ACE-TAF have been supporting governments in the adoption and implementation of quality standards, the International Electrotechnical Commission quality standards specifically, for standalone solar, and advising governments on developing customs handbooks and streamlining pre-export verification of conformity standard processes, or PVoC processes, to protect consumers. And we'll hear more about PVoC processes in Ethiopia in a few minutes. One of the top priorities for the government of Ethiopia is to safeguard the country from unfair trade practices and the dumping of substandard goods. However, close to 60% of solar products imported into Ethiopia are still of poor quality. As Ethiopia is the second largest market for off-grid solar in sub-Saharan Africa after Nigeria, the government has been very intentional about increasing access to electricity for 60 million people that are still underserved. Through the National Electrification Program 2.0, the government plans to electrify 9.2 million households through standalone solar. Today, we will discuss how quality assurance standards and interventions being implemented by different government agencies in Ethiopia are aimed at protecting consumers, especially the most vulnerable. So let me reach out to Mulugeta first. So as I said, Ethiopia is the second largest market for off-grid solar in sub-Saharan Africa. And the government has been taking steps to increase access to reliable solar products in the country. Would you please describe the actions that the government has undertaken over the last 2 years, and what has mainly contributed to the success of these activities?
Okay, thank you. As ECA, as I tried to mention in my introduction, ECA is just responsible for quality assurance in overall, and also as a government organization. In the last 2 years, we have done a lot of things, but just to mention the 4 main points. The first one, we have adopted 2 standards. The first one is a test method, and the second one is a requirement. That's from the IEC standard. And also we have tried to develop a certification scheme for standalone solar systems. Maybe after we have gained all the necessary test equipments, we will start to write certification of solar systems for local assemblers and also import products if necessary. And second one is we are under process to upgrade our testing laboratories to test standalone solar products up to 350 watts. Currently, our laboratory has a capacity up to 15 watts for smaller systems. So under support of ACE, we have received a lot of equipment for testing, except one critical instrument, the battery analyzer. Hope we'll also receive this instrument maybe within the next month, and hope we will get a training as planned by end of January, maybe for 3 weeks. And third one is, as a country, we have tried to implement PVoC program. We have done a lot of things to implement this PVoC program. We have awarded 2 international PVoC agents, Cotecna, and also another one is BV. And we have signed a contract agreement with them, and we'll start a PVoC program for standalone solar systems. That means any standalone solar systems imported from anywhere has to accompany with a COC certificate issued by these 2 agents. That means all solar systems imported into the country will be quality verified. And the fourth one, as a pilot project, we have certified 1 small systems, 10 watt systems, by our current capacity. And it may be a good start after we have implemented a PVoC. We'll check the markets through our test laboratories, and also if there is a local assemblers, they have to get certified by ECA. Thank you.
Thank you, Mulugeta. There's quite a bit happening. I realize that especially on the PVoC, we've just launched that September of this year. But the willingness from the government and across the government agencies has been phenomenal. So let me turn it over to Bart from the private sector standpoint. What was your experience with the quality assurance process before these changes that were just mentioned by Mulugeta? And then I recognize that some of the changes were very recent, but what do you anticipate will change for you as a representative of the private sector with the new processes in place?
So the experience was not bad for us, and I think for most people in the association or the private sector. But the issue was that the PVoC we were using was not really a real agreement. It was more like a temporary goodwill process to help out the private sector to be able to import systems and to have some sort of level of quality. But that was only for systems under the 15 watt peak, and there was a lighting global certificate. So the issue with that is that it is not completely binding. So that means you can run into all kinds of issues when people start to interpret things from different governmental institutions. I, for example, had an issue with somebody from trade who started to interpret the certification in a different way than it was intended to be. So you then have to deal with these issues, and it creates a necessary process that can be avoided. And with this new process, we will not encounter that anymore, because it is clear, it is described, everybody has agreed upon it, all the government institutions are now aligned. And I think that is a major win for Ethiopia and a major help for the private sector, because we don't like to see substandard systems on the market. And like you said, it's 60%. I personally think it's higher, because I see way more substandard than standard. I mean, today still. And so we are very happy with this evolution. It will help the solar sector to deliver more quality products. So people who were even importing substandard, they can still now import like much better quality things and still bring them to the market, and the customer will not have a problem with after sales, because the main issue on the substandard systems is that there is no after sales process for these things. And so a consumer knows that when he buys on a very low price, that they can break after like 5-6 months. And then he's stuck with a broken system. And this process will really help us to get away from that.
Thank you so much, Bart. Really great examples that we are seeing, not just in Ethiopia, but in other countries as well. So obviously the ultimate goal is to reduce those poor quality products, not just for the other private sector players, but ultimately for the consumer and the end user to ensure that they have access to good quality products. With their limited income, they can't afford to buy multiple products. So thank you so much.
And it is a double win, right? Because the sector wins, the consumer wins. Because these substandard systems, they bring a bad reputation to the solar product in itself, which is linked to certain products and not others. So this standard will really help. And yes, like you said, the consumer should be protected, because there is no reason you should spend twice to buy something when you can spend once.
Absolutely, Bart. And I think I'm going to actually expand on that and say it's a triple win. The private sector wins, the end user wins, and actually Ethiopia wins, because we get more access for good quality products for the constituencies in the vulnerable groups in Ethiopia. So thank you for that. I want to shift over a little bit more detail and ask Kenassa, being on the ground, Kenassa, I know you've worked very closely with different government agencies. What role did ACE play in supporting the government's consumer protection efforts and those 4 points that Mulugeta had mentioned?
Thank you. To ensure the consumer protection in Ethiopia, there are different government stakeholders involved in the process. For example, Ministry of Trade is a regulatory body for all imported and exported goods. And the Ethiopian Conformity Assessment Enterprise is an enterprise which confirms the quality of goods. And the Ethiopian Standard Agency is an agency which sets standards. So the joint effort of these 3 government stakeholders ensures the consumer protection. Africa Clean Energy Technical Assistance Facility Under its intervention, quality assurance worked closely with these three government stakeholders to support the consumer protection. In collaboration with UNDP, Africa Clean Energy Technical Assistance Facility involved in the harmonization of the compulsory Ethiopian standard and the voluntary Ethiopian standard, that is the CS140 and ES687, with the new IEC 62257-9-8. IEC 62257-9-8 is the testing method and requirement for DC systems up to 350 watt peak. With the joint effort, the IEC 62257-9-8 was approved by the National Standard Council in April 2021. In addition to this, to make the adoption and the implementation of standards smooth and effective, the Africa Clean Energy Technical Assistance Facility also prepared guideline, which is now ready for training. The other activity under the quality assurance on which the Africa Clean Energy supported the government of Ethiopia is the realization of the PVoC, that is the pre-export verification of conformity system in Ethiopia. This is new to Ethiopia, and Africa Clean Energy Technical Assistance Facility supported the pilots, supported the program, and it is piloted. With close collaboration with Ministry of Trade and the Ethiopian Conformity Assessment Enterprise, Africa Clean Energy hired national and international consultants and supported until the PVoC system is launched and contract is signed with 2 conformity agencies. The Africa Clean Energy also prepared PVoC brief, which shortly describes the procedures the private sector should follow to use the PVoC program, and that was distributed during the launching of the PVoC. The other thing is the Ethiopian Conformity Enterprise is the responsible body to confirm the quality of the imported and locally produced items. The Ethiopian Conformity Assessment Enterprise has a laboratory facility that can test solar lanterns up to 15 watt peak. However, it does not have the appropriate equipment and training to conduct a market check test for solar home system kits. The Africa Clean Energy has been selected as the second institution for lab support and signed cooperation agreement with IFC on October 15, 2020 for the installation of solar lab equipment and capacity building support. IFC provided lab equipment and technical assistance that permits Ethiopian Conformity Assessment Enterprise to provide the market check method, testing services, and Africa Clean Energy is providing support to IFC on advocacy and coordination activity. Thank you.
Thank you, Kenassa. Quite a bit is going on over the past couple of years, and we could see how it all ties to consumer protection, giving the Ethiopian government the ability to test in-house, to do pre-certification at the port, before importation. All of this is going to ease the burden of the importation process for the private sector. I reach out to Bart. We've heard that the government has adopted these IEC standards formally, and they've increased from the standards from, I guess, 10 or 15 watts up to 350 watts. And now is implementing the pre-export verification of conformity. Can you just go, you started to talk a little bit about it, but can you talk a little bit more in detail about how these 2 interventions are supporting solar companies in the country?
Yes, so like I said earlier, the substandard, and you mentioned it also, the substandard system present on this market is unbelievably big. If you go to shops, you see way more substandard than standard, especially in the regions. When you go further out, it is quite amazing. And even if on the box it says 2 years warranty, believe me, there is no warranty. Some of my own distributors are selling that, and I ask them why you do it, and they say it's to do with price points. And if other people do it, I have to do it. So this will bring a solution to that. because a trader is there to make money, right? And even if he wants to sell the better product, if it's a bit more expensive because of the whole after sales cycle, yeah, then he can't really do that all the time, because he has competition, and he wants to be competitive within the price range that is possible. So I think that also that is one thing. A second thing is to really formalizing it and having all the agencies and the government institutions to be aligned is very important in the Ethiopian context, I think. It's important everywhere, but maybe even more here, because the interpretation of the individual who is doing his job carries more weight in Ethiopia than what I saw in other countries. And then things can get stuck very easily. And by doing what you guys have done, we're going to get rid of that problem, or to get past that problem and be on the next stage of product inflow into the country. I would also like to say something on the process you have used, because I think, yeah, the merit is due where it has been given, right? So I think that Eden and Kenassa have done a fantastic job in bridging, and as ACE representing ACE, bridging the links between the consumer, the private sector, and the government all together. And I think that is very important. We see a lot of development agencies, and they don't always work like that. Sometimes it is more like a conversation with the government, and then we'll bring something that goes somehow to private sector, and then the consumer is also somewhere there, but nobody really talked to him. And I think that the process you have done also with local people, right? Because a lot of times I talk to people who sit in Germany, they sit in the UK, they sit in all kinds of places, and it doesn't mean that they really understand the Ethiopian context. But in the case of Eden and Kenassa, who have experience in the sector and have worked on this for quite some time, I think it gave the outcome that we really needed.
Thank you, Bart, and thanks for that acknowledgement. I believe I didn't mention this in the beginning, but ACE-TAF is more about facilitation. So it's not about actually just implementing and talking to one, and putting a pilot in place, for example. So we worked very closely and actually the government agencies led the PVoC process. What we did is we facilitated that discussion. And I think that that's partly why we were able to get these 4 things that Mulugeta had mentioned in the beginning accomplished, in my opinion, in a very short period of time. Oftentimes it takes years and years for governments to adopt these things, and the government was very willing. And I think it had a lot to do with them having all of the evidence from all the different stakeholders. So everyone, it's a win-win-win for everyone. So thank you for that. Bart. Kenassa, over to you. Can you describe some other lessons that we learned during the standards adoption process and putting in place the PVO systems? Maybe specifically, what were what's a key challenge that we encountered, and how were they addressed? Maybe for learning for some other countries that are trying to adopt a PVoC process or adopt these standards. Over to you, Kenassa.
Thank you. Yeah, as I've mentioned, the PVoC system is new in Ethiopia. It is a pilot program what the African Clean Energy supported. So after this program is launched, the Ministry of Trade got experience to expand this to all products. Now it is very easy for the Ministry of Trade to expand this PVoC system because they have everything in place now. They have the contract agreement, the bid document, and the bid evaluation document and everything. So they can now expand this PVoC system for all products which are imported to Ethiopia. So this is one of the things which is this is one of the things which with the Ethiopian government learned and what we have also learned. The other thing is coordination is very important here. We have not started the quality assurance program from scratch. Before, IFC was doing on this and UNDP was doing also on this. So this collaboration is very important. So building on what is already existing, we will avoid duplication of effort and also wastage of resources. We also learned that there should be a dedicated department for PVoC implementation, or there should be a technical team composed of project manager, engineer, and accountant who will follow the day-to-day activity and expand this to other product also. And we also feel that, or learn that, there should be an implementation strategy which clearly shows what the PVoC company and what the Ethiopian government will do on this one. So that has to be also the lesson we have learned. There are a lot of challenges in the process of the PVoC system. One of the challenge we have faced is as this PVoC system is new, at the beginning, identifying the right institution who has a mandatory to implement this PVoC was one of the challenge, because there is a Ministry of Trade, there is the Ethiopian Conformity Assessment Enterprise, and their mandate is, it looks like it is mixed. Therefore, then going to Ministry of Trade and going to Ethiopian Conformity Assessment Enterprise and explaining all this one and clearing everything was one of the challenge. So the other challenge is when the bid document was prepared for bidders, as it is new, we don't know what should be included in the bid document. So the first bid document which was advertised did not attract many bidders. Therefore, it was we were not successful in the first advertisement. So we just have seen and amended the bid document, and finally the new bid was advertised, and then that attracted private sectors, and they submitted their document. So there are other challenges, and yeah, as I've mentioned, going to talking with all these three government stakeholders it was taking also time, and also due to the current situation in the country, also that delayed the implementation of the PVoC. That these are some of the challenges. Thank you.
Thank you, Kenassa, and I appreciate that there's a lot of detail and different challenges and lessons that were learned throughout the process, but thanks for summarizing it so succinctly. I'd like to reach out, go back over to Mulugeta. So Mulugeta, what are some of the key outcomes the government expects from the quality assurance systems and processes that have been put in place? So what does the government expect to see a change? How does the government see the sector for standalone solar changing based on implementing and enforcing these quality assurance processes and systems?
Okay, thank you. As a government, the key outcomes we expected is substandard products are eliminated or minimized from the Ethiopian market. But the question is how. As Kenassa mentioned, we will implement a lot of things like the PVoC. As Ethiopia, we almost import all solar products. So this PVoC will support us to minimize or eliminate those substandard products. And second one is for the local manufacturers or assemblers. For the local manufacturers and assemblers, After we upgrade our testing laboratories, we will do certification of those solar products, and also we'll give testing service, and we'll regulate those products manufactured in Ethiopia market. And the third one is there may be some problems with the PVoC. After the process imported with the PVoC, there may be some problems with the products. So we'll do a market check test from the Ethiopia market, and if we get some products with a compromised quality, then we'll do actions. In that way, I think we will assure the Ethiopia market without substandard products. Thank you.
Thanks, Mulugeta. That's a great summary. I think also of the next steps. So enforcement, we can put a process in place, but I think you're speaking to what are the next steps in enforcing and ensuring that the government's expectation and reduction of substandard products in the market is a measure for how these processes and standards are actually enforced. And it's great to see that you're also looking at local assembly and manufacturing, that it's not just about importation of products, but you're also going to be certifying those products that are imported and assembled, the components that are imported but might not be certified as standalone solar systems, and you'll be doing that after they're assembled in country. And then more specifically, as you said, the market surveillance testing is a huge way of measuring if substandard products have actually been reduced in the markets. But I think your point about if you find substandard products, you will take action, and I think that that's really important. Oftentimes we do market surveillance and we say, oh, it went from 60 to 70% or 60 to 50%, but still, we found substandard products, and how can we actually improve the quality assurance systems and processes that we have in place? So it's great to see that you're closing the loop on imported, locally manufactured, and then identifying if they still exist, and then taking action to improve those processes. Before I summarize the key points, I just wanted to reach out to Bart, Kenassa, and Mulugeta if you have any final comments. So over to Bart for a final comment.
I think I said most things that are like from the private sector perspective important. The post actions, like you just said it, and like Mulugeta has just defined it, I think it is indeed important to go to the market and look what is there and test some of these things, but to ensure that the informal entry into the country, right, because this is now official normal exports. We all know that some of the borders are a bit porous, like we have that on the Somali side, we have that a little bit on the Kenya side, and we're not really sure what gets through those borders, right, through certain mechanisms. So I think it is important that what you said, that you will take the testing to the field, and that actions will be taken, because once people start to see that action is taken, will be not much use of bringing these systems into the market in an alternative way. So I think that's a very important thing that Mulugeta has mentioned.
Thank you, Bart. I agree. And over to Kenassa. Any final comments?
Thank you. My final comment on this one is, now the PVoC system, which is implemented now, is for systems up to 350 watt peak, and these systems are as a DC and also plug and play type. So we now, just as a conclusion, recommend just for any donors who will take over in the future, that they expand this to component standards and also expand this to other productive use, and also for pumps and solar irrigation and so on. So if this is done, then it will be complete, and it will support the government and also support the community at large. Thank you.
Thank you, Kenassa. And back to Mulugeta, any final comments from you?
Yeah, actually, it's not a final comment, maybe just to add one thing, if you let me.
Absolutely.
Okay, I think Bart, he told us about the problem with the border. Maybe in the next, we'll try to prepare Ethiopian standard mark. So every product in the market has to put that Ethiopian standard mark. So any consumer has to buy, or we will make aware any customers to buy only with a product with Ethiopian standard mark. So in that case, we'll eliminate products smuggling through the border. And another thing, maybe we need to support what is did, because these products are constantly changing. The technology is improving day to day. So we have to also update our laboratories and our staff. So appreciate your support, and we wish you to continue this support. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Mulugeta. Well, I'm not going to take too much time. There's a ton of information available on consumer protection and increasing access to reliable solar products. You can write to us if you have any questions at ACEKM Help Desk, so ACEKM Help Desk at tetratech.com, or visit our website. There's a knowledge hub on our website at www.ace-taf.org. The key points that I'll pull out from today, I think are we've mentioned quite a bit, but I think they're pretty important for other countries actually to take a look at a comprehensive program. In Ethiopia, the quality standards were adopted for solar products up to 350 watt peak, and there was handbooks that were created to ensure the guidelines created to ensure that solar standards were enforced and implemented. In Ethiopia, the upgrading of the solar testing lab was conducted, and training of the staff so that we could hand over. It wasn't just a donor program, it was handed over to the different government agencies to ensure that quality could be assured moving forward. And then lastly, a pre-verification system was adopted in September of 2021. And it's a comprehensive process that starts at the country of origin to ensure that the imported products adhere to Ethiopian standards. And as we heard from Mulugeta, they're looking at putting a stamp of approval from Ethiopia, which is going to help with leakage of poor quality products at different border points. So enforcing and getting that PVoC process up and running is going to be very important. It's expected that the PVoC process and adoption of these mandatory standards and the guidelines will reduce the importation of poor quality products in Ethiopia and increase the proportion of quality certified products in the market. So as we mentioned earlier, it's a win for the government, it's a win for the private sector so that the poor quality products are not distorting the perception of solar systems in Ethiopia. And it's a win for the end consumer. All of these interventions that we've talked about will help to ensure that consumers are protected from poor quality products and that their confidence in standalone solar products are enhanced so that we can increase access for those 9.2 million in Ethiopia. Thanks to everyone. I think it's been a great discussion, and we look forward to the follow-on activities as we described.